Jimmy Casas, we are back, my man. The weekly show is back after a time away. Probably time for you to just relax a little bit and not, kind of be with me on the weekends. We're back and we are better than ever. We're gonna have a great time this year. Is this season 3? Is this
Season
the 3rd?
3.
Oh my goodness! So we have so much to talk about because we've been gone for a long time. We had summer. You got married. That was fun. And did we get and then that was fun, right? We had fun. We had fun.
Yeah, that was absolutely fun. Except
I
the
didn't
part
embarrass you in front of everybody. I don't
when
think
you spoke,
I
when
did.
it all went south.
That's right. And now we got ourselves back into the swing of the year, and we are so excited to be back. And hopefully, people jump on and join in and have a good time talking about schools and how we can lead in the different capacities, because it's leadership always, because it's always about leadership. So today we are back, just trying to reintroduce ourselves almost to each other and talk about the beginning of the year and how things went. We've both been on the road for a long time, since mid-July. And doing convocations and getting ourselves, hopefully getting people excited about the school year, and that's been so fun. We've talked about this off the air. We're so humbled to be asked to help and with the responsibility of starting off the year for school districts, and we've both had a blast doing it. I guess I shouldn't speak for you, but I know I talked to you enough to know that opportunity is something that we never take for granted. And what a wonderful time with the excitement of a new school year and people coming in and wanting to do the best for kids and take care of each other. And now we are about a month, not even, I shouldn't say it like that. Some groups are about a month in, but we're about maybe 3 weeks into the school year for schools across the country. And now we got to figure out how we can keep that momentum going. So how have you been, my friend?
I have been great. Funny you say that. It's like this is starting our 3rd year of the show. That is crazy. And you know how I know that? Because I was looking at pictures last night. When I looked at pictures, I had a full head of hair.
You did not. That's such a lie.
3 years later, I don't have any hair, so I have to wear a hat.
Yeah, don't do that. They're not blaming me on that one. That's not. I mean, yeah.
I'm actually, Joe, you mentioned getting married, and that was obviously awesome, and she's amazing. But I'm going for husband of the year right now. We got married, and I haven't been home since. So anyway, having said that, that's not a good start to the marriage. Yeah. Where'd you go for your honeymoon? Oh, I took her to a conference. So
you did. You went to Denver. I was there.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
That.
Yeah, good stuff. It's got the room paid for, so that works out pretty well.
There you go. Free room for that. Just it's all going well. So I see Chuck Moss on here, and I was at Chuck's school this summer. So that's
good.
Awesome. Chuck, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, Chuck.
Chuck, keeps showing those pictures of those bass up there on his Twitter feed. It's killing me. So good morning, Frank. Good morning.
Frank's up there too. Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, Frank.
I sent Frank some books a couple weeks ago for his group, for some leaders in his area. Looking forward to connecting with them next week. So that'll be really fun. And so we appreciate all the support, people jumping on and giving, just it's just been really fun to do. And so I think when we've put ourselves in a situation at the beginning of the year where we're out there trying to get, people excited about the year, I think there's that balance for us, right? Because we're new. They don't know us. Some people do, but they don't know us. So like all of a sudden you're thinking, oh my gosh, the administration's bringing in this guy. Like, what's this going to be? He's going to be like, motivational speaker boy. How is that going to help me when I should be in my classroom getting ready for kids? And so I think there's that balance that we always have to kind of, the line that we have to walk to make sure that, hopefully we're entertaining, but at the same time, can we leave people with an idea that's going to help them and not overwhelm them when things get to be really tough? And I think that's one of the things that we try to make sure that every group that we have takes away. And this is about the time where we want to make sure that that they can be reminded of some of the things that we talked about, hopefully. And we're not trying to add to anybody's plate. We're just trying to make sure that they can look at that plate a little bit differently. And I think when we get into the the grind of the year, it's really easy to start piling more stuff on that plate without even knowing that we're piling the stuff on the plate. And I think that's where we're getting ourselves as leaders into trouble, not only with us from a leadership standpoint, but those we lead are doing the same thing. So now if we're piling stuff on people's plate that are already piling stuff on their own plate, sometimes we don't know that we're overwhelming people along the way. And so, we really want to think about how we can do that. It's one of the things that I'm thinking about today as we kind of get into the year, a couple weeks in. This is about the time where, leaders start to say, well, let's try this. Well, why don't we try this? I'm like, let's just kind of back up a little bit here because your people are just getting into the groove right now.
That's right. That's so funny you say that, right? And, it is interesting, Joe, you bring up a good point, I think. And, if you think about it this way, every principal or every superintendent in their buildings or districts right now, they're basically presenters because every time they bring their faculty together, in a way, they're kind of presenting, right? So they are presenting to their staff and faculty. And so there's always like these 4 things that I always think about and I like to share out is, and I think from a principal's perspective or superintendent's perspective, we could also think about it this way. And that is that whatever you share when you bring your staff together, it's hopefully that one of those things validates the work that they're already doing. And so that's always a good thing, right? Quite frankly, Joe, we know this, that almost everything we do in schools is actually pretty good. Okay. Yes, areas that we need to work on. Some things we do really, really well. Some things we just do okay because we just have so much going on that we can't do everything great. But at the same time, I do think that we should validate that good work that's going on. And I think it's a good reminder that when we get in front of people, we have to constantly remind them of those things. So rather than us tell them what are the good things that are going on, let's ask them what are the good things they see going on. But I think that intentionality and showing that visual and showing that list allows people to say, oh, look, oh my God, we did get a lot done this year, or we have gotten a lot done the last 2 or 3 years. The second thing is hopefully that what we share, or whether an administrator shares it, is that it is something that they're already doing, but something that you share gives it a little bit different twist or a little bit different added value to it, that they say, hey, you know what? It's interesting because I feel like I'm kind of stuck and I feel like I just keep doing that same thing. But now that I heard that, maybe if I do that one little piece, it'll just take me to the next level. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, hopefully we do share something that's novel or something that they're like, you know what, I hadn't thought about that. And I'd like to try that because I really like the way they shared that or the activity they did or what they explained. And so those are good things also. And then the last thing is this is what I find more than anything, is that most people will say, well, yeah, I know that. So, but why did I stop doing that?
Yeah.
And what happened? I used to do that and I'm no longer doing it. So whether we're the ones presented to other people or we're the ones being presented to, I think we need to reflect on those things as we go through our presentations or anytime we bring a group of people together, right? Because we do talk about the importance of building community, the importance of building family. Well, that means we have to be really intentional on people, giving them time to really interact and engage. And the reason that is because we know when that happens, it builds this relationship a little bit more closeness. You understand these people a little bit more. You understand why they behave the way they behave, the way they respond, the way they communicate, whatever, because they all have these experiences. And so I think when we're intentional in that, it does create this thing called empathy, right? It's really hard to have a really great culture when people don't know each other's stories. So I think there's an intentionality to everything, especially as you kick off the year. We see that during convocation. You see it, I see it. I know that principals are super excited, but I think our challenge to them, I think you and I were talking about this morning, is how do we keep that going?
Right.
We don't want to just do it in the beginning because then it seems a little bit disingenuous. Like, oh, well, we did it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just kind of checked the box and now we just kind of get back to regular business. And we know that the best cultures try to replicate that first week of school. They try to make that first week of school every week of the school year. And so I think those are some things, just as reminders to all of us, is the intentionality of how do we repeat that first week of school. And some people think, well, we really can't. I'm like, I think you can if you really want to. Yeah, you may not be bringing everybody in and bringing the band in or the cheerleaders or some group in to present every time, but you can replicate that energy, I think, in many ways. And it starts by having fun, building community, getting to know each other's stories. And obviously there's work to do, but those are a couple things that I'm thinking about as we get back to the school year.
Well, the thing that I think I keep coming back to is there's so much energy during that week or during that day or whatever the case may be. And, we can talk about replicating it or we can just talk about like, what were the best parts of that week that we want to bring back throughout the course of the year? You don't have to it doesn't have to be copy paste the next week.
Uh-huh.
But as we look at like what was the most exciting part of convocation, and how can we make sure that we put that together moving forward? And even with the band, the band comes in on convocation. Well, what are we doing? Sometimes I've been in places that we've done it in our school where you have the drum line come in, on a Friday, just on a random Friday. You break the script on a random Friday, right? And people are walking into school just to create some excitement about those things going on. The other thing that I think that we have to be really cognizant of as leaders is how we start the year and thanking everyone, right? Like we spend so much time at the beginning. I'm almost everyone. You can disagree with me, but actually probably won't. But think about it, at the beginning of almost all of these convocations, before we go on stage, they introduce everybody, new people get introduced, and then they spend time thanking the custodians and the bus drivers and the kitchen staff and everybody for getting the building ready when nobody was there. And my thought, every time that they do that, my thought is, when's the next time that you thank them? Do you wait until the designated week, that we set out during the year to give them a $100,000 bar and a soda? Or do you figure out ways that you can do this on a regular basis? Like we talk about, what's the next time? Because if the only time that we thank them is at the beginning of the year, and then we don't thank them again until, it's their week, I think you go right back to what you mentioned before. I think it's a little disingenuous. So how can we make sure that there's opportunities along the way? And, sometimes you have to be really intentional about that from a leadership lens, putting stuff on, honestly, like put it on your calendar. Like as an administrative team, can you put it on your calendar and say, this is just like on a Thursday, on every Thursday or something like that, you're putting in different groups, the paraprofessionals, secretaries, custodians, as you go down the month. And it's not that everybody needs to run to them on that day, but it's a reminder to you as the leader to say, I got to be in that spot just to make sure that I can continue the conversations going. And that's been really helpful, because I think the best conversations, the best opportunities here's the way I think about it. So when we go to Teacher Appreciation Week in May, right, and we write cards to all of our staff members, and so when we write cards to our staff members and say thank you for something they've specifically done, the best cards I'm at my best when I can go right to that card and write something down. I'm at my worst when I have to think about the last time I've been in that space. And that happens, it happens. So what do we do as leaders to just help ourselves out along the way? Because it's not our intention to not be in those spaces to celebrate people. It's just that the world, we get overwhelmed with it.
Yeah.
But the same thing happens with our staff. Right. So when we talk about, when we have a hard time getting to all the places, we have to acknowledge that sometimes it's hard if they've got a number of kids coming through on a regular basis. Sometimes it's hard to make that individual connection. So how are we helping them understanding that we struggle with it too?
Yeah. No, I think definitely I agree with you, Joe. You said a couple things that are interesting. So let's just go back to the card first of all, because you just kind of ended with that. But as we know, it's actually what you write in the card, right?
Correct.
There's a difference in how you write the card that says, hey, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for everything you do. Boom. Okay. Well, that card's probably going to go in the garbage can eventually.
Yeah.
But if you can say in that card, Joe, and I've seen you do this, where you write something so meaningful because it's something you notice, it's something you value about them, you actually take time to intentionality because of the relationship you have, it's a much more meaningful card. And you've done it right when you go in the classroom and that card is either posted right there on their bulletin board or on their computer or on their desk, or they save it or whatever. And that's much more meaningful. And those are the things that we talk about relationships. Mm-hmm. It's not that superficial relationship, but that deeper relationship. And that's that whole idea of really getting to know each other. You talked about the beginning of the year and finding the things that are most exciting. And I agree with that. But it's also the things in my eyes, what were the most valuable things we did in the beginning of the year? And here's one thing that I would say to all leaders, and we were talking about this, Joe, too, is this idea of this pressure that we put on ourselves to still have to figure out all these things by ourselves. Yeah. So, one strategy to do is a simple strategy. And Amy kind of talked about it in here when she says everything on the platter matters, just got to find a way to balance it. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. But what we also have to figure out is what is it that does matter?
Right.
And who is deciding that? And so from a leader's perspective, what I continue to see over and over, and I just saw it all this week, Joe, because you and I were out on the road, is I still see, especially right now since the year started, is principals literally just running around trying to fix everything again.
Yeah.
And again, they are just moving so quickly. And so one of the things I would encourage all of our leaders to do is right now, just slow down a little bit, slow down, because when you're moving so quickly, trying to fix everything, you just get sloppy. And every time you get sloppy, you're going to create some sort of undercurrent. And so what I mean by slowing down is, first of all, reflect on everything. We don't have to make decisions in the moment. That's one thing. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't those exceptions, but for the most part, we could slow down and just hold off on the decision. Or more importantly, go get the voice of others. This is why your secretary is powerful. This is why your own admin team is powerful if you have one. This is why your building leadership team is powerful. It allows you to slow down and go get some input, some feedback to slow down so you don't miss it and don't create an undercurrent. So again, what were those things in the beginning of the year that were valuable? Well, obviously you have some insight on that, but you know who else does? Your staff.
Right.
Why not just go back and say to the staff, hey, listen, we had a great year to this, or start to the year. What are some things that you really enjoyed that you would like us to do again and continue to do? When they have that input, when they have that feedback, you know, that's what we see is you're seeing the culture through their eyes. Therefore, you avoid the undercurrent. It's the issue of time that continues to catch us. And I still continue to see people using that as an excuse. And I know there's almost so much time in the day, but I believe that we still create a lot of issues that take up a lot of our time because our processes are ineffective. And so if we were able to trade that time, in other words, put the time in on the front end, the benefits of that are investment of time, relationship building, giving people a voice, giving people value, making them feel appreciated. I think we'll get better results when we take time to do that, because when we ignore that time, we end up paying for it on the back end. That's what I see. And then it costs us a lot more time. And by the way, that time is very, very stressful.
Right.
So,
here's the thing that I think, one thing that caught my ear when you were talking is when you go back and ask them what they, what happened at the beginning of the year that you want, that they would, want to continue moving forward, or what was the most valuable to them. I think we both know what that's going to be, right? We both know that it's going to be time. It's going to be time. And if we're out there running around trying to fix everything and probably putting stuff on people's plate when we don't really know that we're doing it, we're essentially taking time away from them too.
Yeah.
So when they say we want more time, or they want time, embedded in what they do, then let's figure out ways to do that. And a lot of times that means that we got to take a step back and just kind of take a couple breaths and think about where we're at. So, it's a really great point, because if I would ask our group for all 12 years that I was in the superintendent chair, if I would ask them, I would say 10 of the 12, they'd say time.
Time. You bet.
They would just say time. And so we made it our, a point to make sure that we put ourselves in a situation where we were giving people as much time as we possibly could, in terms of initiatives and everything that went along with them. But at the same time, sometimes it's just unstructured time. The more time that you fill for them is just, it puts more on their plate, to be really honest. I mean, they're going to fill the time, and they're going to fill the time with what they believe is valuable too. And when we overschedule things because we feel like we have to, and because it feels like it comes on us in terms of how we, how we're leading, I think we lose our way a little bit. If we trust the people that we serve, then trust them with probably their most precious commodity, and that's time.
Yeah, I'm looking at Carolyn's comment here. And first of all, thank you for those of you who joined us this morning. And if you're, as we always say, if you're interested in jumping into the studio, Carolyn or Josh or Amy or anybody who wants to share some thoughts about the beginning of the year, Chuck, whoever's on here, you're more than welcome to. Just let us know. We'll send you the link and you can jump right in here. But appreciate the comments as well. And it's funny, Carolyn talks about the changes without creating more work. And it's interesting, again, when you look at change, people hate change. People don't like change. People are scared of change. I'm like, I'm not so sure that's accurate. Is it really change, or is it the fact that we don't give them the support, the guidance, the structure, the time? And I think when you do those things and you bring people together, change can actually be a lot of fun. It can be very rewarding. It's exciting. There's a lot of positive things, but somehow we've created this narrative that change is scary, and it's always around the same issue, right? And it's time. And it's one of the biggest, in my opinion, one of the biggest game changers is when you can figure out that it's about the investment of time for me. And so even thinking about as the kickoff to the year. So we're now heading to mid-September.
Mhm.
And the question I always think about from a leader's perspective, again, superintendent, principal, it's no different. How do we parallel both of those practices? That way, systemically, it looks the same from one level to the other, right? When it comes from a leadership perspective. But if you think about it, here we go again. So how often since the school year started have we been intentional in giving back time to our people in this manner?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a principal, I'll give you an example. If I'm a principal, am I on a regular basis meeting with my head custodian? Am I on a regular basis meeting with every new teacher who started in my school this year, both individually and as a cohort? And have I found time to start finding a process to meet with all my staff, whether it's me or my team? Am I meeting regularly with my secretary? Am I meeting regularly with my own admin team? Why are these things important? Because they allow you to avoid the issues that you are going to create when you are making these decisions in isolation.
Right.
And so, but the excuse that I get is because we don't have time.
Yeah.
But again, that time, that relationship with your custodian, you can't tell me we can't meet with them 15 minutes every week to say, hey, how are things going? What's coming up this week? What do we need to stay ahead of? Because for everything we forget, for everything we don't do, for everything we drop the ball, it is a credibility killer.
Yeah.
And so, but it's also the relationship, because to me, leaders have a way of really influencing others through their vision, and more importantly, through the way they carry out that vision, their behaviors. So if I want my custodian to replicate my vision or our vision with a sense of pride, then we have to have conversations. We have to do walkthroughs to the building. I think you should be doing a walkthrough with your head custodian every month to walk around the building to say, hey, how are things going? I love how this looks. You've done, oh my God, this part of the building, this looks amazing. Hey, here's an area right now I'm just a little worried about. And the custodian can say the same thing. Hey, look, we're doing this, and we need some help here from the staff, right? We need some help from the staff. Because if we don't do that, people are over there talking about it anyway. They're just not talking to you about it. And so here we go. We get all these little undercurrents that hurts the culture and hurts the morale of the building. So superintendents can do the same thing. They can be meeting with their principals. They can be meeting with their cabinet. Everybody replicates. And these don't have to be 3-hour meetings. They literally can be 30-minute meetings, 15-minute meetings. But it's the routine, the intentionality, because it gives people a voice and they feel that they're a part of the decisions, and it's transparent. And so I think all those things are very important.
Well, the one thing that I struggled with, not the one I struggled with a lot, let's be honest, but one thing that I struggled with in being in a district where it was one building, K-12, was I found it really easy to just go down and have a conversation with the head custodian or with our elementary principal or our middle school principal. And I could get out of my space, go down and see them and have the conversation and then move on. And I could essentially see everybody every day. Okay. But what that did was it made it easy to push the meeting, because if I needed something, I could just go have the conversation. So I felt like I could always just get these conversations happening, but they weren't scheduled. And when they weren't scheduled, then, the one conversation that I had with one principal that was 10 minutes, and another one, when I went and just checked with the other one, was 3 minutes because somebody interrupted us. Now, one principal is getting more than the other principal, which means they're not getting all the information, which means now they're trying to catch up. Or when it all comes to head at one time, not everybody's got all the stuff that they need. And so I found myself in really, difficult is probably not the word, but I found myself in spots where it was just easy to push the meeting. And I did that far too often because I felt like we're fine. We're all in one space and it works out all right. And so I think, we got to be real cognizant about how we can make sure that things are scheduled.
Joe, that's a great point. And when you said that, it made me think of something, and that is, so just take that example you just said, right? And we see this all the time. Okay. So here's what we hear. Well, I talk to my administrators all day long. We're constantly having communication. I mean, I check in with my secretary 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day. It's not the same thing. No. And let me tell you why. Because to me, the biggest responsibility that a principal has is to move the big rocks of the organization, the school improvement plan, whatever those big rocks are. Okay. We are spending a ton of money and a ton of time and resources in school improvement plans trying to move these big rocks in order to impact student achievement. to me, those big rocks for a principal is your 30,000 foot view. That's your view from the balcony. Okay. But what happens is when we're having these flyby conversations in the moment, you're talking to the secretary, you're talking to your AP. I have witnessed this enough to know that those conversations are not about the big rocks.
No.
Those conversations are about the boots on the ground, 1,000 foot view problems that you're experiencing. Hey, did you follow up with that parent? Hey, what about this kid? Hey, I had this situation today. Hey, I forgot to do this. Hey, can you contact this thing? That is not moving your big rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And so the formal meeting, we want people to understand, is because the formal meeting is to help you move the big rocks. Because if we're constantly in the fire, no one's moving this.
Right.
And this is where we get caught all the time.
Right.
And so whether it's a superintendent or whether it's a principal or whether it's a classroom teacher, what are the big rocks? And what I've learned is that principals, because they came from the AP role and they lived in the 1,000 boots on the ground or at the 10,000 foot level, then when they become principals, for whatever reason, they're still stuck here because this is what they know.
Right.
And that's where we have to really support our principals. Joe, you and I talk about this all the time. This is where coaching principals helps because they don't see this, because the reality of it is they've never lived in that 30,000 foot view and nobody's really helping them with understand the importance of this. And so look what they're doing is they're modeling to their APs this all the time. Why? I need to help my APs. I feel guilty. I feel like I want to support them. Yeah, but then nobody's working on this until the last minute. And now we're all in scramble mode and we're checking the box and we don't get the results we want. And guess what? Here comes a new initiative.
Yep.
It's the, I'm just telling you, we see it over and over. And again, I'm not being critical. I'm talking about me. 12 years.
We've done it.
I did that.
Yeah.
No one ever taught me to say, Jimmy, who's moving the big rocks? If you're all down here, boots on the ground. But you know what we'd say? Well, what are we going to do? We have all these referrals. We got to get to all these kids. They got to contact these parents. Yeah, well, but somebody's got to move the big rocks. And by the way, superintendents is no different.
Exactly.
They've got their own big rocks.
Exactly.
To move.
And that's what I was
dealing with
saying.
Personnel issues, if they're dealing with parent issues, if they're dealing with issues that's being created in the building, they're not moving their big rocks either.
No.
So we're all just running around, just
scrambling. Everybody's scrambling. One of the things when I talk to superintendents and I help, superintendents get themselves rolling in the year, I tell them like the difference between the principal role and the superintendent role is that you'll have these times where you're sitting in your office going, what am I supposed to do? I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm just sitting here. And then what they do is they fill those gaps. And when they fill those gaps in that what would be considered almost downtime, they're filling in the gaps. The next thing they know, they got 20 things, and now they're still filling in the gaps and on the other stuff that they're doing. So now they're completely overwhelmed. They might be sitting there for a little bit and going, I feel like I got to do something. I'm going to start this new initiative. Well, now you're going to start the new initiative and you're going to put stuff on the plates of everybody else. And now you're going to add more stuff to your plate when you got to take care of the big rocks, right? So it's a really interesting concept. And it's exactly what you're talking about. When you're in charge of making sure that the building moves forward, you have to be able to see it at a level that not everybody gets a chance to see it at. But that you have to be okay with not running around all the time like you were in your previous position, from the teacher position to the AP, from the AP to the principal, from the principal to central office, whatever the case may be. Like, you got to be real cognizant of that. Otherwise, you're going to overwhelm yourself. And when you overwhelm yourself, you're going to overwhelm the people that you serve as well.
That's right. And the thing is, Joe, it's not because people aren't working hard. Hell, they're working harder than they've ever worked.
Exactly.
But this is the exhaustion. This is the burnout, because we're just constantly, we're kicking pebbles all day long. That's what we're doing. We're just kicking pebbles. And we're kicking down the road, and we never move the big rock. And so, but it makes you feel good that I keep kicking that pebble down the road.
Well, because you feel like you're always busy.
That's right.
And you can see, and you can say at the end of the day, man, I worked hard today.
I got a lot done today. I got my to-do list done, Joe. I got my to-do list done.
That list. See, that's the thing. When the list drives me nuts because I have it. But when you can't find some joy in the list, when you can't find a way to move people within the list, and you get done with the list, and then you get back and there's 10 more things on the list, you're never getting away from that mentality. So you have to be okay taking a step back and taking a look at the 30,000-foot view and understanding that it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable because you're not like bam, 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 bam.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're doing that, when you're in that mindset where you're bam, 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 bam along the way, you're also, not only are you doing that to other people, but you're also modeling that for other people.
Right.
And when you model that for other people, then all of the people that you serve feel like that's the only way to be successful. I mean, if you're the leader of the school district and this is how you walk through and this is how you operate, then everybody's going to look at that and say, well, that must be the way that we all should do it. I mean, he's leading the whole thing, right? So now you've set out what as you mentioned all the time, Jimmy, what you model is what you get, right? So if we're going to be a model of great leadership, if we're going to be a model of what we want to do in schools, we have to think about what are our actions along the way.
That's right. Yeah. And the thing is, Joe, is remember, as leaders, our job is to grow and develop more leaders.
Correct.
And if we, as the superintendents and as the principals, are not modeling to our APs who we're supposed to be growing and developing, especially if you think about it in a district, or whether it comes from your staff or whether it comes from somewhere in your district, we have to teach people how to be here more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to explain to them why that's important.
Right.
And so, again, listen, folks, Joe and I, look at it. We just got all fired up there just for a little bit, okay? But
people are starting to wonder for a second.
It is not saying that we are right or that we have a monopoly. These are just our thoughts and our experiences. But it is in our experiences of probably close to 60 years in education, and more importantly, in the work that we do now. Because one of the things that I never really thought about is, I get stuck in my own building too for a long time, and I only know what I know because this is where I live every day.
Right.
But the fact that we have these opportunities to be in all these schools and watch all these leadership styles and sit in all these meetings and observe all this behavior influences our behavior and our thought process, and it allows us to continue to grow and develop. And that is where we thank all of you for being on the show, for the comments that you make on it. Oh my God. Hey, Joe, if Baruti Cafelli enters our show, then we know that we did one thing right in our lives. That's it. It's over. Let's end the show, Joe, because there's nothing else to talk about. Baruti, thank you so much, brother, for being here this morning, and Chuck and Carolyn and everybody else that joins us. We really appreciate that. It's just a perspective. It's all it is, my friends. It's a lens. But here's the thing to remember. Everybody that's walking in your buildings is walking in with a different perspective and a different lens.
Yeah.
And that is why it's so important to really understand the lens, the way people see things through. In my experiences, the reason they see it the way they see it is because it's based on those past experiences. And that's why we have to invest time in people to understand those experiences. So we bring value to people, because we know that people who feel valued and appreciated will always do more than what is expected.
Absolutely. And if
we can all right, Joe, it is great to see you, my brother.
Great
oh my
you,
God. I have two choices. Either I do the weekly show with Joe Sanfilippo in order just to see you, or I get married every weekend. I mean, either way, it's going to be pretty freaking awesome, my friend.
I'm going to tell you,
pretty awesome.
You're probably not going to want to get married that's going to cause a little bit of an issue in the house. I'm just going to say it out loud. Like, if you're going to get married every weekend, or some sort of cost. I mean, Culturize is a successful book, but that's going to get real expensive real quick. Let's be honest. Let's be honest, man. Let's be honest. You want to talk about replicating the beginning of the school year stuff. If you're going to replicate wedding weekend, look out, brother. Look out. You are broke, my man. You are broke.
Yeah, but to see her in that dress every weekend, buddy, oh my goodness, that'd be pretty good.
I thought you were going to say to see me speak in front of a group of people.
No,
God, it was worth
never
a shot,
again.
man.
That was enough. I mean, you make fun of me for making up words. How many words did you make up in that roast? Notice I didn't say toast in that roast.
Listen, I made up words that you already made up. So let's be honest about that. I did say wedding eyes. I did say that you talked to the guy running the place and asked him if he lived his excellence. I did say that. So let's be honest about this. I mean, I did say that the whole wedding was brought to you by Culturize, and the
That's right.
appetizers were brought to you by Live Your Excellence, because that book didn't sell any copies. So I mean, there's a difference in terms of
Actually, that's not true. Remember how it sold like 200 copies at that place you were speaking at? Remember that? That was the best ever. No hacking leadership. No leave from where you are. Joe Sanfilippo shows up and they go, Joe, we want you to talk. Oh, and not only the books, Joe, but what about all the T-shirts they were wearing?
You need to go away. This is enough. This is why we don't do the show every week anymore.
And you know what the best part of the wedding is? When you said, Jimmy, just always remember, though, we can talk about Culturize and Live Your Excellence and all these things. But, buddy, listen, you got to make sure you take that bride and you handle her with care.
Yeah, I never said that. I didn't say that at all. Don't you do that. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all. Jody, don't you put words in my mouth. I didn't say that.
I thought we ended the show. People were like, what? I thought the show was over. We did the rant at the end instead of the beginning. That's right. It's a new thing we're trying this year.
No, we're not. The reason that we did the rant at the end was because I'm at a hotel room in Texas right now, and I didn't want to wake anybody up at 7:30 in the morning. Now it's 8:30 or 8 o'clock. We're good now. I yell and scream all I want now, Jimmy. I'll yell.
Oh, there it is, Jimmy. Jimmy, it took you the whole show to get there. That's awesome. Hey, I'm just glad you're not in the van, buddy. I'm not in the van, and you're not being arrested right now for being a creeper. That's all. That makes me happy.
Listen, Jimmy. Next week, I can't promise that I won't be in a van down by the river. In fact, I promise I will. And Baruti's here. I did his podcast from the van down by the river. No joke. In the same spot that those cars kept coming in. I thought, I'm in trouble, man. This is school. So Baruti knows exactly what's happening right now. It was not a good situation for anybody at all. Let's be honest about it.
We have lost control.
That's over. We got to get out. Jimmy, it's 37 minutes. My gosh, people are gone. We're just gone, man. We're gone.
Out of here.
It was great.
Thank you so much, everybody. God bless. And we'll see you next weekend on the Weekly Show. Take care, everybody.